I want to call this a B. I think this is a lot better than the Stitchwing Scab. It doesn't fight with some of the bigger creatures in the format, but the fact that you can recur is nice. All right, next is Chilling Grasp. 2 and a blue. Tap up to target 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. And it has madness for 3 and a blue. So this is pretty solid. If you're madnessing it, this is really nice. This is definitely kind of a tempo-y card. I don't think it's quite good enough to go into a control deck, but if you're any kind of mid-range or aggro or tempo, you're going to want to play this card. So, yeah, I think I like this at like a... Yeah, you did miss white, but you could check out the spreadsheet here, and I'm also going to be posting this to YouTube. So let's call this like a C+. Again, you don't want too many of these kinds of effects. It's not true removal, but it's good. It's enough value for the cost. Next, Coax from the Blind Eternities. You may choose an Eldrazi card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. Well, F. The problem with this card, if you have an Eldrazi that you want to play, it should be in your deck. How much did you miss, Aphilus? You missed white. And I'm planning on posting the replays to YouTube, so you can watch the replay if you'd like. My nose itches. Oh my god. It's like, it's not like boogers or anything, it just itches. Feel free to give me some dance games for that. Anyways, contingency plan, 1 and a blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top of your library in any order. How shall we evaluate this card? So this is basically Taigam scheming. This is... It's better. It's almost strictly better than Taigam scheming, right? Because Taigam scheming looked at 4 and this looks at 5. Here's a question. How many cards would you want to see with a card like Contingency Plan before you called it playable? Chat. Give me a number. How many cards would you need to see? 5 is a lot. Remember, 5 is an 1/8 of your limited deck. Oh, it is top 5. Damn. It's the same. Rip. 8, 20. 10. I think 7 is probably close to the magic number. Yeah, I thought Taigam scheming was 4. That's my bad. I must be thinking of a different card. Yeah, this seems like a situational build around. Let's call this a build around. Build around D. Helps set up Delirium quite well. but card disadvantage kind of sucks. Unless you're getting cards back from the graveyard. Yeah, if you're getting cards back from the graveyard, it's probably fine. It's basically Scry 5. It's close to Scry 5, yeah. It's close to Scry 5. In fact, it's probably better than Scry 5. If you have enough graveyard synergy, I think this card becomes playable. But I don't think it should be considered for main deck for most people. Or for most decks. Next card, Convolute. Convolute, 2 and a blue for an instant. And it is a common, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 4. So, Super Mana Leak. This is similar to Spell Shrivel. And Spell Shrivel saw some play, but mostly Spell Shrivel saw play, well, partly the reason it saw play was because it got a card into exile, which was nice, because if you got a card from your opponent's deck into exile, you could process it. This doesn't have, like, there's no synergy of that in this format, but, you know, we do care about Delirium, so the fact that it gets an instant into your yard does matter a little bit. Yeah, this is probably close to a C-. I don't think you're going to want to play this too often, but if you have a tempo-y deck, if you can get, like, a 2-drop onto the field early, Convolute gets a lot better. The more instant speed effects you have, the better counterspells get. Yeah, this is most of the time going to read counter target spell. So, yeah. Anyways, next, Curious Homunculus. Curious Homunculus is a 1/1 for 2, which you can add colorless to your mana pool but you can only use that mana to cast instant or sorcery spell. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 3 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, transform him. And he transforms into this cute little guy, Voracious Reader, which is a 3/4 prowess. Not the only 3/4 prowess in this format. And it says instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. Well, this is interesting. Obviously, you can only really play this. This is definitely a build around. You could only play it in the instant sorcery deck. So spells, red, blue, spells matter. The question is, how hard is it to get 3 or more instants or sorceries into your graveyard? Let's suppose you have 10 instants and sorceries in your graveyard, right? If you have, or in your deck, if you have 10 in your deck, on average, you're gonna have 3 in your yard by turn 5 or 6 ish, I'd say. A 1/1 for 2 doesn't do much. I don't like, this is fine, but I think it's a, like, you could play it in the instant sorcery deck, but I don't think it breaks that deck, right? Turn 2 with contingency. Okay, there you go. There you go, Barbarian. You figured it out. I think this is a build around C-. Only playable in the spells matter deck, and in that deck it's not even that much of a reward. You could play it in any blue deck that has more than 6 instant sorceries. I disagree. I think you have to be dedicated to that deck to make it work. Is a 3/4 prowess with incidental upside really worth sculpting your deck around? No. Like, I don't think so. It can be a reward for being in that deck, sure, but even then, like a 3/4 prowess, how many times are you going to trigger prowess in one turn? 2, maybe? Okay, you've made yourself a 5/6. I'd rather just cast a 5/6, right? Yeah, this card belongs in the deck with Rise from the Tides, but it's not that good. Yeah, Lone Rider is much better than this. Yeah, I don't like this card that much. Now, if I'm in that deck, yeah, I'll play this card, but I don't think it's that good. 3/4 prowess is strong. I mean, it's a card, but it's not. It won't ever break through a 6/6, like almost ever. Very, very, very rarely will it manage to do that. That's a pretty high bar, but you know, it's a 6/6. Even if it's not one creature, you can double or triple block it and it's dead, right? Then what have you done all this work for? I just don't think this is that good. Rise from the Tides is much better than this card. At least as a reward for being in the archetype. Anyways, let's keep going. That was a very controversial card. I'm interested to see how it goes, because I could be wrong, but... anyways. Displace. Exile up to 2 creatures you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. So it's a double bounce? I guess this gets good with things like Stitch Mangler. It depends on how much ETB you have. If you have a lot of enter the battlefield effects, Displace gets pretty good. But if you don't, it's pretty bad. So let's call it like a C-. It can also be like a 1-turn fog, sort of. Like you can block with your creatures and then displace them and bounce them. Instant +1 for Witch Plays. That's true. We can grade it up a half point, yeah. Anyways, I don't think this is that good. Let's call it a C-. Gets better with ETB. You think it's worse than C-? There's a fair amount of good ETBs, though. And can be used to dodge removal or fog combats, kinda. I think it's a D+ at most. Yeah, that might be too high. I'm not going to play this very often. Let's call it, yeah, I think I can get around D+. Okay, let's keep going. Docent of Perfection. This is probably one of my favorite design cards in the set. Docent of Perfection, 3 blue for a 5/4 flyer. So if you just said, hey, would you pay 5 mana for a 5/4 flyer unlimited? I'd say, yes. So this is already really good, but then we have upside, and the upside's pretty sick. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. Then, if you control 3 or more wizards, transform it. Okay, what does he transform into? He transforms into this 6/5 flyer, which says wizards you control get +2/+1 and have flying. So he made a Delver and flipped the Delver. I love it. This is beautiful. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. So he keeps that part of the text. This card is absurd. This is so good. This is comparable to Gisela. I don't know where it stands next to Gisela. In an instance and sorceries based deck, this might be better. If he never flipped, Gisela would be better for sure. Like, without a doubt, right? Because Gisela has the, lifelink first strike flying, right? That's pretty hard to, for 4 mana. But if you can reliably flip it, I think it's better.